हेलो दोस्तों, दिस इज भारत कुमार एंड यू आर वाचिंग माय चैनल निर्मल इन्फो अपडेट्स।
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left.
The tensions with China in eastern Ladakh could eventually result in increased permanent deployment of forces in the Ladakh sector of the Line of Actual Control (LAC), in what could be termed as the LOCization of the LAC. With higher deployment, some vantage points could get physical posts instead of being left open to risks of possible incursion by the People's Liberation Army (PLA), said sources in the defense and security establishment. The cost of permanent deployment in some forward areas will be high for India, but it will be higher for China, as PLA troops have never had tenures in such harsh terrain, which the Indians are used to due to the Siachen and line of control deployments, said the sources. Another possibility could be having a bigger reserve in depth areas than what was there before May, when tensions grew, and a much larger surveillance system in place for observation of Chinese movement, said the sources. India's move on the southern banks of the Pangong on the night of 2/9/30 August is the first instance of India changing tactics at the LAC and moving in to dominate territories claimed by both the sides. So far, the understanding with the Chinese was that while both sides may claim the same territory, neither will move in and set up any posts until the overall border issue is settled, the sources. However, China has broken this understanding a number of times in the past. Now, forward deployment of troops will continue to remain until China goes back to status quo ante, the sources said. However, the Ladakh sector could see additional deployment of troops and equipment for defensive postures once the tensions subside. Also read, words need to turn into action, soldiers not impressed by China peace talk with Jaishankar. President Xi Jinping is the architect of recent aggressive moves against India, and by doing so Chinese president has risked his future with the high-profile incursions into Indian territory that unexpectedly flopped in the face of ferocious fight back by the Indian Army, according to leading U.S. magazine Newsweek. Xi, already roiling the Communist Party with a rectification campaign and mass persecution of foes, will launch another brutal purge following the Chinese army's failures on the Indian border, Newsweek said in an opinion piece. Unfortunately for Xi, he is the architect of these aggressive moves into India, and his People's Liberation Army (PLA) has unexpectedly flopped. The Chinese army's failures on the Indian border will have consequences, the Newsweek said, adding that the recent developments give Xi an excuse to pick up the pace of replacing adversaries in the armed forces with loyal elements. More important, the failures motivate China's aggressive ruler, who as chairman of the party's Central Military Commission, is the leader of the People's Liberation Army (PLA), and the ruling Communist Party of China, to launch another offensive against Indian positions, the magazine, in an opinion piece. Beijing is accustomed to getting its way in disputed territory, especially because Indian leaders and soldiers, psychologically paralyzed by their loss in the 1962 border war with China, played only defense, the Newsweek said, adding, paralyzed no more. China is thought to have suffered at least 43 deaths in the Galwan clash. Peskel says the number of Chinese killed could exceed 60. Indian troops fought back ferociously. Beijing won't admit the extent of the debacle. The ground force does not have a track record of success in contested situations, claimed the U.S. magazine. Its last major engagement was in 1979 when, in the effort to teach Vietnam a lesson, the Chinese launched what they called a defensive counterattack into Vietnamese territory and, in the process, were repelled and humiliated by their much smaller neighbor. Now, after decades of an unprecedented modernization effort, the ground force is far better equipped and trained, but it is apparently not much more effective on a battlefield, claimed Newsweek. Hypersonic weapons are the ones that can fly at speeds greater 5,000 km/h, more than 5 Mach. Such a speed is equivalent to about 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers, a second. These weapons fly low, remaining in the endoatmospheric region, generally at altitudes below about 90 kilometers, thereby reducing the chances of their detection by radar systems. For a rough comparison, commercial airliners fly at subsonic speeds, whereas the modern fighter jets fly at the supersonic speeds of 2-3 Mach. F-35 has a maximum speed of 1.6 Mach, while J-20 has a maximum speed of 2.5 Mach. The hypersonic weapons have such speeds that can allow them to strike anywhere on the Earth in under an hour, wrote Ltgen, Dr. V.K. Saxena, retired, in a research paper. Currently 2 versions of hypersonic weapons are being developed. These are hypersonic cruise missiles, HCM, and hypersonic glide vehicles, HGV. A conventional cruise missile is a guided missile used against terrestrial targets which remains in the atmosphere and flies the major portion of its flight path at constant speed. It can deliver a warhead with precision over long ranges. The hypersonic cruise missile is a typical cruise missile which is all the way powered to achieve hypersonic speeds of Mach 5 or higher. Talking of higher speeds, it is reported that the Russian hypersonic cruise missile Kh-47M2 is capable of reaching up to Mach 10 and can carry a warhead to a range of 2,000 kilometers. Hypersonic glide vehicles are another version of hypersonic weapon range. Such a vehicle is also called a wave rider because it uses the shock waves generated by its own flight as a lifting surface to enhance the lift-to-drag ratio to reach the hypersonic regime of Mach 5 or even more. A typical HGV is launched by any solid propellant rocket/missile which can give it the initial boost in momentum up to a point after which the wave rider phenomenon can be sustained by the hypersonic vehicle on its own. The talks between the Indian and Chinese foreign ministers can be seen as a holding operation, an effort to defuse, if possible, the situation diplomatically, hoping that China realizes that India will fight back this time, as shown by its occupation of mountain heights south of Pangongso to obtain tactical control of the Spangur Gap. A major conflict seems inbuilt into the situation unless better sense prevails. China must step back as it has triggered this confrontation. Its talk of meeting halfway is unrealistic because that would mean that China gains half and India loses half. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar's meeting with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Moscow on September 10 was preceded by a meeting of the defense ministers, which, from the subsequent tough statements issued by both sides, did not break meaningful ground. Wang Yi could not have carried a significantly different mandate. However, how the fluid situation develops cannot be fully anticipated by either side, and therefore keeping the diplomatic channel open to assess bottom lines or detect openings is important. The Jaishankar-Wang Yi joint statement refers pro forma to the formula of not allowing differences to become disputes, even when a dangerous dispute has arisen in logic because of differences. Accepting that the current situation in the border areas is not in the interest of either side acknowledges the dangers ahead, and hence the agreement that the border troops should continue their dialogue, quickly disengage, maintain proper distance and ease tensions. But then, several meetings of the corps commanders and at other levels have produced meager results. For disengaging quickly, the differences in positions emerging from the several rounds of talks have to be quickly overcome. A separate Chinese statement after the FN-level talks giving a stern warning to India is not a good signal. Withdrawing from held positions will be a very difficult call. Chinese troops must withdraw from the sensitive Depsane area and to Finger 8 at Pangongso. Can we withdraw from the Kailash Range heights, knowing that once we do so, retaking them would be impossible should the Chinese capture them afterwards? The imprecise phrase proper distance is liable to be interpreted differently. To say that all the existing border peace and tranquility agreements and protocols should be respected and any action that could escalate matters avoided is neither here nor there, as China has violated all these agreements. Continuing communication through the special representative mechanism and the working mechanism for consultation and coordination is to keep the dialogue doors open without any fresh commitment. Expediting work to conclude new confidence-building measures raises the question whether, without resolving underlying issues, new ones can work. China seeks to put curbs on development of border infrastructure by India through new CBMS.